Hey, everybody. In this video, I'd like to do an update on what's going on with the Houthis. There's been a lot of focus on Hezbollah and Lebanon for obvious reasons, with the recent agreements that have mentioned Lebanon and Iran's focus on Lebanon, but they do have other proxies. And there's been some news and some developments. We shouldn't think that those other theaters are in a state of a stalemate or anything. There's a lot happening there. So there's no reason for more intro. Let's just get right into the headlines. I think this is a really interesting story happening here. So this is a headline from today. Yemen foils Houthi smuggling of drone explosive boat components. 3 sailors aboard, who the Giants brigades were suspected of links to the Houthis, were detained for questioning. We'll get into who the Giants brigades are soon. So Yemen's pro-government Giants brigades said on yesterday, they intercepted a boat in the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait, carrying equipment suspected of being intended for manufacturing drones and explosive-laden boats destined for Houthi-controlled territory, highlighting what the officials describe as the continued use of maritime smuggling routes to bolster the group's military capabilities. The force said in a statement that the vessel was intercepted while attempting to sail toward the western province of Hodeidah, whose ports remain under the control of the Iran-aligned Houthi movement. Okay, let's pull out a map and understand what we're talking about here. Okay, here's the Strait of Hormuz. Here's Iran, right? That's where our focus has been. Here's Israel. Okay, and down here, here's Yemen. And here is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That is the name for this choke point, okay, which leads up to the Red Sea, which of course then leads up to the Suez Canal and up into Israel's port of Aqaba up here, or Jordan. But mainly in terms of a shipping route, it leads up here. But the Bab el-Mandeb Strait also serves for shipping to come out this way and have an alternate route out to the Red Sea. In terms of oil, Saudi Arabia has a pipeline, the East-West pipeline that goes from its major oil fields in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia all the way over to Yanbu over here, and then that oil can either go up to the Suez towards Europe, or it could go down and out, down through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, out through the Gulf of Aden, out and then eastward towards wherever. Towards the Far East, towards India, China, wherever it might be going. Okay, so the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is a very important choke point, and Hodeidah port is, the Hodeidah province is in the western part of Yemen. The northwest of Yemen is mostly controlled by the Houthis. Okay, so that level sets us here. Let's get back to the story. And I might as well tell you who the Giants brigades are. So the Giants brigades, we'll get into them soon, but it's basically the unified military of Yemen against the Houthis. Again, I'll explain more in a couple minutes, so hold on to that thought. 3 sailors on board, who the Giants Brigade said were suspected of links to the Houthis, were detained for questioning. According to the statement, the cargo included hydraulic drilling equipment, computer servers, electronic chips used to operate drones, GPS navigation systems for precision guidance, engines, and specialized equipment believed to be intended for assembling explosive boats. The Houthis did not immediately comment on the allegations. The interception comes as regional and international security agencies increasingly focus on maritime smuggling networks operating across the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Okay, Gulf of Aden. This is the Gulf of Aden. Here's the Red Sea. Gulf of Aden. What connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Okay. It's one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, linking the Indian Ocean with the Suez Canal. Yemeni authorities say the narrow waterway has become one of the principal routes used to move weapons, electronic equipment, and dual-use technologies into Houthi-controlled areas. Security officials say smugglers frequently rely on small wooden dhows, fishing vessels, and other traditional boats that can blend into normal commercial and fishing activity, making them considerably harder to detect than larger cargo ships. And you take a look up here, you see there's some small boats up there. I don't know if this is connected to the story. Rather than transporting complete weapon systems, they often move individual components that can later be assembled inside Yemen into drones, missiles, or explosive boats. A previous United Nations report concluded that the Houthis had developed an increasingly sophisticated domestic military manufacturing capability, relying heavily on imported electronic components and equipment smuggled through the maritime supply routes. Notice it hasn't mentioned anything yet about the origin of the stuff on these boats. We'll get to that. According to the report, these materials have enabled the group to manufacture drones and remotely controlled explosive boats that have become central to its military strategy. Yemeni officials say repeated seizures near Bab el-Mandeb demonstrate that attempts to move military equipment into Houthi-held territory continue despite tighter international naval patrols. Abdulrahman al-Mahrami, commander of the Giants Brigades and a member of Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council, praised what he described as a significant security achievement. He called for greater efforts to combat maritime smuggling and tighten restrictions on networks supplying armed groups with military equipment. Security analysts say the Houthis' increasing reliance on small vessels provides several operational advantages. Their limited size allows them to alter routes quickly, avoid radar detection more easily than larger ships, and mix with legitimate fishing traffic operating along Yemen's lengthy coastline. The latest seizure comes amid heightened regional tensions following months of attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The Houthis have repeatedly used drones, missiles, and explosive boats in operations targeting commercial and naval vessels, prompting the United States and several allied countries to expand their naval presence in the region in an effort to protect international shipping and intercept suspected weapons shipments. Yemeni government officials and international security organizations have also reported what they describe as growing cooperation between the Houthis and Somalia's al-Shabaab militant group in smuggling weapons and petroleum products across the Gulf of Aden. Just for context, where's Somalia? This is Somalia right here. So Somalia is also in a very strategic location. Officially, according to most nations in the world and according to Somalia itself, this piece here is also part of Somalia, but it broke away a few decades ago and is called Somaliland. And we're gonna talk about Somaliland extensively in a few minutes. That's the area that is pro-Western. They're democratic. Israel recognized them. Okay, so that's Somaliland. Here's Somalia, and in Somalia is jihadist. It is one of the worst places in the world to be a Christian. You basically get killed. I think on the list of persecution of Christians countries, Somalia is like right after North Korea. It might be the worst place, or second or third worst place in the world to be a Christian. It's pure jihadist, ISIS-like, al-Shabaab. That's what Somalia is. Horrible place. And so what it says here is that there's a growing cooperation between the Houthis and al-Shabaab in smuggling weapons and petroleum products across the Gulf of Aden. According to government sources, weapons and fuel are allegedly transported to Somalia before being concealed among livestock cargoes and loaded onto wooden boats for onward shipment to Houthi-controlled ports, particularly Hodeidah. Okay, so here's Hodeidah right there. Okay, this is Hodeidah up here. So there you go. You see that on a map. Good. Iran has repeatedly denied U.S. accusations that it supplies weapons to the Houthis. So this is the first thing we have about origin of this, and all it says is that the Iranians deny it. The United States has for years accused Tehran of transferring military equipment to the group through regional smuggling networks. Yemen has observed a fragile truce since April 2002, although sporadic clashes continue on several fronts. Officials say continuing discovery of suspected smuggling shipments illustrates that efforts to weaken the Houthis increasingly extend beyond battlefield operations to disrupting the maritime logistics networks that sustain the group's military capabilities. The task remains difficult. Years of conflict have severely weakened Yemen's Coast Guard, which has lost much of its patrol fleet and radar infrastructure, limiting its ability to monitor the country's extensive coastline and intercept illicit maritime traffic. Very much like in Lebanon, The Houthis have been for years stronger than the Yemeni military itself. Although unlike Lebanon, the Houthis don't control Yemen. They control a chunk of Yemen. They occupy basically a chunk of Yemen, a piece of Yemen, and the rest of Yemen has been, well, we'll talk about it in a moment, kind of in a state of civil war, but that's changing right now. Government officials say additional international support, equipment, and intelligence sharing will be needed to curb continued smuggling through one of the world's most strategically important waterways. Now, considering what happened in Hormuz, you can understand why there's now an increased priority on making sure that these choke points are not weaponized by these Iran-backed terrorist groups. So you have Iran here in Hormuz, you have the Houthis here in Bab el-Mandeb. Okay, now what about the origins of this? So here's a post by Mohammed al-Basha. He covers this whole region of the world, very well-informed guy. This is also from today. Third Houthi-bound maritime shipment intercepted in less than 12 months. He's talking about the same event, but he puts it in greater context. He says this is the third one. Okay, and he's got this little video of what they found here. And you can see them unloading the equipment that they found on the ship. Let's pull that up. Right, these are the Yemeni guys, and this is some of the stuff that they found there. Okay. Not sure exactly what we're looking at. That's that. Okay, look what he says. Seized cargo included drone navigation systems, industrial network equipment, precision manufacturing tools, and a Chinese drilling rig, highlighting the continued flow of dual-use technology. It says another thing they do. It's dual-use technology and its components. So there's always this plausible deniability that it's not really weapon systems. And for those who aren't familiar with the term, dual-use means it could be used for military purposes or for non-military purposes. Bottom line up front. Today's maritime interdiction near Bab el-Mandeb Strait underscores the importance of continued international support for Yemen's counter-smuggling efforts, particularly the Yemen Coast Guard and other coastal security forces responsible for securing the country's territorial waters, preventing illicit shipments of weapons and dual-use technology from reaching Houthi-controlled territory remains essential to protecting freedom of navigation through the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb Strait, enforcing the UN arms embargo, and limiting the flow of military supplies that sustain the conflict. This is the key paragraph. This marks the third reported interception of a Houthi-linked shipment of military or dual-use equipment in less than 12 months, coming only weeks after the ceasefire between the United States, Israel, and Iran. The seizure suggests a procurement and logistics network procurement and logistics networks supporting the Houthis remain active. While the cargo's ultimate origin remains under investigation, the prevalence of Chinese manufactured industrial equipment highlights the increasing role of commercially available dual-use technologies in sustaining modern military supply chains. Dual-use Chinese stuff. And he's got pictures. He's got more pictures of it down here. Here you see examples of these small boats that they have here. Some more pictures of the equipment. And in one of these pictures here, there was Chinese characters on some packaging, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. Take a look. That's Chinese writing right there. So they found a lot of Chinese components in here, which, when you think about it, we're talking about, China has also been, of course, supplying Iran with everything it needs for years and has an interest in keeping the Iranian apparatus going. So is this coming directly from China? Was it purchased by someone else? That is under investigation. Okay. Now I mentioned we talked about the giants brigades that represent the government. So we have to back up a few months and go back to January. Okay, first let me explain some background about what's been going on politically in Yemen for years. So in Yemen, you have the Houthis in the west and the northwest of the country. You have the official recognized Yemeni government. And then you have all these militias who've been fighting each other but their common enemy is the Houthis, but they also fight each other. There's different independent groups. They seize different regions of the country. And then all the way in the east of the country, for a long time, there was a separatist group. There's still a lot of separatists there, but in the eastern region of the country, let me pull up the map again, show you what I'm referring to. In the eastern region of Yemen, like in this area of Yemen, out here, in this region, that's first of all where the main oil fields are. But this part of the country has had a lot of people who have wanted independence. They want, and secularists. They were backed by the UAE for a while. But basically, the whole rest of Yemen has not really been unified. So what happened over the course of the last 8 months or so is that the UAE-backed separatist secular group has kind of been pushed out. They kind of disbanded, really. And many of their fighters got folded into this now more unified front. The best way to explain this is to read this article. This is an article from January 10th of this year. And I'll give us some important context to what we're seeing. Yemen president announces formation of Supreme Military Committee, thanks Saudi Arabia for support. Not a surprising headline considering this is in Arab News, which is a Saudi royal family-owned news website. Okay, so take that with with the appropriate grain of salt. Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council announced on Saturday the formation of a Supreme Military Committee. The committee will be tasked with overseeing and preparing all military forces for the next phase of the Yemeni conflict, as government-aligned forces secured control of key camps across the country, said Council President Rashad al-Alimi. In a televised address on Saturday, al-Alimi said the committee operating under the leadership of the Coalition to Support Legitimacy will also be responsible for equipping, organizing, and leading all military formations and readying them in case the Houthi militias reject peaceful solutions. The Yemeni leader praised Saudi Arabia for its sincere brotherly role in supporting Yemen's unity, legitimacy, and stability, describing the kingdom's backing as a lasting and responsible partnership for Yemen and the wider region. Al-Alimi said government forces had successfully taken over camps in Hadramaut, Al-Mahra, the temporary capital Aden, and other liberated governorates, calling on Yemenis to unite behind efforts to restore state institutions and end the Houthi coup. See, what's happening here is, what happened here in January is that the Saudis and the Emiratis had were really going at it, backing different groups there. The Emiratis were backing the separatists. The Saudis eventually won that. But now what the Saudis did was they worked with the existing Yemeni government and they pulled together all the different militias, including the old separatists, and they pulled them all together so that they could form one united front to finally deal with the Houthis. That's what this is about. Let me jump down a little bit. Al-Alimi urged those who had gone astray to surrender their weapons, return looted property, rejoin the ranks of the state, while directing governors to ensure continuity of vital services and improve living conditions. He underlined the importance of strengthening security. Okay, and working together with the coalition. So that's the background, excuse me, of what's been happening in Yemen for the last year or so. So now, in the wake of Iran's beatdown by the Americans and the Israelis, and now you have this more unified front in Yemen, and they're working to weaken the Houthis, and they're also performing these interdictions of shipments to the Houthis, as we saw yesterday, this top story that we started with. Okay, so this is all. So that's when we talk about the Presidential Leadership Council and the Giants Brigades, we're talking about this new, more unified Yemeni front. Now, how unified is it, and how long will it stay unified? Hey, in this part of the world, the prospects are never that good. But that's the lay of the land right now. The Houthis benefited from the infighting and all the anti-Houthi camps and the Sunni camps, the secularists. They benefited from that. But now there's much more unity, and the Saudis are really overseeing this. They're more than overseeing it. They're paying the salaries. The Saudis are really running the show here. They're trying to gain greater influence, which I'm not saying whether it's a good or a bad thing. They want to deal with the Houthis. The Saudis want to get rid of the Houthis once and for all. And that's what this is about. That doesn't mean that they're not in bed with some really bad actors. There's some, kind of ISIS type Muslim Brotherhood actors mixed in here also. So it's not like they're all wonderful people on the Saudi side. But in terms of threatening shipping lanes in Bab el-Mandeb, the Saudis want that to be kept quiet. They have a major port at Yanbu, inside the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. It's very important to them that this whole thing gets kept very quiet. Now, at the same time, we have some action going on in Somaliland. So this is a headline from 5 days ago, June 26th. Yemen's Houthi group vows to target any Israeli presence in breakaway Somaliland. So what is this about? So the Israelis recognized Somaliland independence, but also have started to integrate more with Somaliland. There's a big delegation from Somaliland that's been in Israel for the last week or so. Israel starting to invest in water technology down there, but also in security. The Houthis say they will not stand idly by in the face of any Israeli presence in Somaliland. We'll learn more about that presence very soon. Yemen's Houthi group vowed Thursday, that's last Thursday, almost a week ago, to target any Israeli presence in Somalia's breakaway region of Somaliland. That's what they call it, because this is a Turkish media outlet. They don't recognize Somaliland independence. Quote, "We are closely monitoring developments in Somaliland and the enemy's attempts to transform it into a foothold to control the Gulf of Aden, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Red Sea. To control it, right? Like if Israel gets a foothold in Somaliland, it's because they want to control the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. You know what control the Bab el-Mandeb Strait means for the Israelis? It means that they stop the Houthis from disrupting shipping there. So here's Somaliland. Israel is reportedly setting up military installations and working on defense and security issues in Somaliland. Their goal probably is to have a closer front to deal with the Houthis, but we'll get into that more in a moment. Right, so this is Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said that he wants to prevent. We're closely monitoring the enemy's attempts to control the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, he said in a televised speech. He called on the Islamic nation, and countries bordering the Red Sea to take a unified stance to prevent the enemy from achieving this. Yemen will neither stand idly in the face of any Israeli presence in Somaliland, nor will it wait for those who fail to act. He said the Houthi group will take the initiative whenever the enemy establishes any presence to target it by all available means. He also called on governments to reform the situation in Somalia, care for the brotherly Somali people, and support them in confronting the Israeli enemy's aggression. Last week, Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohammed Abdullahi opened the breakaway region's embassy in Jerusalem during his visit to Israel. Somaliland opened their embassy in Jerusalem 2 weeks ago. Israel recognized Somaliland as an independent sovereign state in late December 2025, triggering a massive wave of condemnation. Somaliland, which has lacked official recognition since declaring independence from Somalia in 1991, operates as a de facto independent administrative, political, and security entity. Mogadishu refers to recognize Somaliland as an independent state. It considers it part of Somalia. Great. Okay, so that's fascinating. So take a look at what's happening here. The Houthis are putting out a statement. They see the Somaliland president go to Israel, open up an embassy, increased cooperation on all fronts between Israel and Somaliland, and he says, "We're watching closely. We're gonna stand against the Israelis, the Zionists taking a foothold in Somaliland." Now, here's a story on Memory, the Middle East Media Research Institute, from yesterday. Yemeni media report: Houthi Ansar Allah movement established training camp in Somaliland. So the Houthis, who are saying that the Israelis, we're watching the Israelis trying to get a foothold in Somaliland, and look what they did in Somaliland. That's right, the good guys. The Houthis have set up a training base, according to this Yemeni media report, in Somaliland. On June 27, 2026, 4 days ago, the Aden-based daily Al Ayam published an article claiming that Yemen's Iran-backed Ansar Allah movement, that's what we call the Houthis, has established a training camp in the Togdir region of the Somaliland breakaway state. So let's see where Togdir is. Togdir. Here it is. This is the Togdir region. Okay, so if we pull that back here, they've established a base in this region, according to this report, the Houthis. Based on an exclusive report published the previous day by the UK-based Sheba Intelligence, the article said that the Houthi leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, tasked a special committee headed by Assistant Defense Minister for Logistics, Hassan al-Kulani, with establishing the camp. The committee reportedly transferred Somalis and other Africans who had trained at Houthi-run camps, as well as Yemeni fighters and foreign experts, to Somaliland. Since April, al-Kulani has allegedly gathered large numbers of fighters at a camp in a mountainous area with dense tree growth located near Odwain in the Golis Mountains. Where's Odwain? Let's look for it. Odwain. Let's see where it is. Right there. So in this mountainous area here, they have apparently set up a camp. Citing an exclusive report published the previous day by UK-based Sheba Intelligence, the article the Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi had tasked a special committee headed by Assistant Defense Minister with establishing the camp. Among those sent to the camp were experts in operating drones and missiles, and that the Houthis had transported parts of ballistic missiles and drones to the area in separate shipments, right? That's what we see. They always do it in different components. They ship them separately. According to the report, the camp's main purpose is to give the Houthis an alternative operational depth on the African side of the Gulf of Aden so they can maintain pressure on Bab el-Mandeb and the Gulf of Aden in case its military sites on Yemen's western coast are attacked. In other words, they've been disrupting shipping in Bab el-Mandeb from Yemen, right? They're located here. This is the main Houthi area, the west and northwest of Yemen. And they've been disrupting Bab el-Mandeb, but now they want to set up a base here to do two things: to counter the Israeli presence, to undermine Somaliland, but also to have bases on both sides of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to disrupt shipping. I mean, this is like, and they're setting this up now. Think of what's happening in Hormuz. Houthis are Iran-backed, and they're trying to set up shop so they can cause more disruptions at a global choke point. Sheba Intelligence further noted that it had received information that forces of the United Arab Emirates, STC, had opened their own training camp in Somaliland. That's the group that was pushed out of Yemen that I told you about, that separatist group, and that over 150 fighters from Shabwa and Hadramaut elite forces had arrived at the camp. The UK-based intelligence group stressed that it was unable to independently verify all the details and the locations. The Somali Memo website linked Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Somalia, Al-Shabaab. They published a Somali language article based on the Al-Ayam report, noting that Israel and Somaliland recently signed security agreements that threatened the region, according to Al-Shabaab. The Somali Memo article claimed it has been confirmed that the Jewish state has established a military base inside Somaliland. Okay, now here we have from Middle East Monitor, not a pro-Israel site. Israel prepares, this is from June 25th, last week. Israel prepares to resume fighting on Yemen front, updates plans against Houthis. Israeli Channel 14 has reported that the Israeli military is preparing for the possibility of renewed fighting on the Yemen front amid what it described as the reactivation and updating of operational plans targeting the Houthi group. In other words, Israel is updating their plans, getting ready to go after the Houthis. The channel said that the move follows statements by Israel Defense Minister Israel Katz, who issued direct threats to Houthi leadership, asserting that, quote, the account with the group remains open. and that it would pay a heavy price for its attacks against Israel and its interests in the region. According to the report, military plans have been updated in preparation for any political decision to launch new operations against the group in Yemen, meaning we're at the ready. As soon as the political arm says go, we go. It added that the Israeli security establishment is working to enhance its military response system to address threats originating from the south. The report also quoted Katz as warning that Houthi leaders could be directly targeted, indicating that any operational opportunity to assassinate senior commanders could be exploited if suitable conditions arise. The developments come amid ongoing tensions in the Red Sea. The Houthis have previously announced missile and drone attacks targeting Israel and key maritime routes, and have vowed to continue escalating their operations as long as the aggression on Gaza, Iran, and Lebanon continues. And here we have from Militarny, which is, I think, a Ukrainian site. Israel plans to deploy submarines in Somaliland. Israel is exploring the possibility of establishing a naval presence at the port of Berbera in Somaliland. The port of Berbera is right here. It's right here where my pointer is. And let me show you on the map. Here's Berbera port, right there, right in the curve. Okay, so, and right behind it, that red thing, that's where the Houthi camp is being set up. Ho, the plot thickens. Israel is exploring the possibility of establishing a naval presence at the port of Berbera in Somaliland. New relations between the countries could allow the Israeli Navy to use this location to deploy its Dolphin-class submarines, according to Defense Network. The port of Berbera is located across from Yemen. This geographical location provides Israel with a strategic vantage point for monitoring the activities of the Yemeni Houthis and Iran in the Gulf of Aden and the southern Red Sea. At least one Dolphin submarine has already been deployed to the Persian Gulf to respond to potential escalatory actions by Iran. In addition, the submarines protect Israeli offshore gas platforms in the Mediterranean. Submarines of this class are capable of launching various types of missiles. Among them are the Israeli-developed Popeye turbo cruise missiles, which have an estimated range of at least 1,500 kilometers. The Somaliland leadership has already welcomed Israeli investments and granted access to its ports, although there was currently no official confirmation of the submarine's extended stay. It should be noted that the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is considering recognizing Somaliland in exchange for permission to establish a naval base. Let's read more about that. U.S. considering, and this is from March, from a few months ago, this kind of went under the radar, U.S. considering recognition of Somaliland in exchange for military base. Interesting. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is reportedly considering the partial recognition of Somaliland in exchange for permission to establish a naval base. Now, why in March, about 2.5 weeks after launching the war against Iran, did Trump say, hey, maybe we need a naval base in Somaliland? Maybe it's because of you saw what happened with the Hormuz Straits, and you realize that you can't have the Houthis blocking off Bab el-Mandeb. An American official told the Financial Times about the new administration's first contacts with the leadership of Somaliland, shared that discussions have begun on a possible agreement. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. This is not from this past March. This is from a year ago. This is from March 2025. So my mistake, correct that. It's not connected to the Iran war, but it could be connected to looking ahead at choke points. Well, that's clearly what it's about. They share that discussions have begun on possible agreement to recognize the de facto state in exchange for creating a military base near the port of Berbera on the Red Sea coast. Yeah. And that's the port I showed you. According to the official, the Trump administration's African team is still in the early stages of formation, and these very preliminary initial contacts are ongoing. The official also mentioned that the administration has raised the possibility of resettling refugees from both the United States and Gaza. However, this issue is secondary to broader military discussions. Okay, we're going to leave that as that is not relevant to our topic right now. But if you put all this together, right, you put all this together, and you think about the fact that the Turks, they're pro-Somalia. They have troops in Somalia, and they are not fans of independent pro-Western, pro-Israel Somaliland. And the Turks, of course, we know Erdogan's relationship to Trump. It seems that the Trump administration has shelved those plans to recognize Somaliland. But if the Israelis have a base there, that kind of serves the U.S. interest. You see, that's what alliances are all about. Does the U.S. need a base in Berbera if Israel, meaning in the port here, if Israel has one? If Israel has submarines that are policing the Gulf of Aden, if Israel has a military presence in Somaliland that's dealing with the Houthis, does America need to be here? So that's an interesting aspect of this. But my point in this video, and we'll wrap it up now, is just to update you on what's going on here, that the Houthis are trying to get entrenched in Somaliland. They clearly have their eye on the disruptions here in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to make that an ongoing issue. The unity of the Yemeni militias that the Saudis are trying to hold together is designed to deal with the Houthis. And then you'll have the Israelis here as well. This is a developing situation. It's going to be very interesting. And let me say something about drones. You see, everything is now about drone components and drones. And you see what's going on in Lebanon, where Hezbollah was killing Israeli soldiers with these very cheap drones, a couple $100 each. This is, compared to the price of real rockets and missiles and real munitions, these drones are super, super cheap. They're easy to operate. They're easy to get a hold of. And we're heading into the era of drone terrorism, where every little militia all across Africa and the Middle East is going to be doing stuff with drones. And we just need to be ready for that and expect more and more of this drone warfare dominating, especially in the terrorist space. Okay, but we see what's going on in Yemen. We're updated. That was the point of the video. Look, if the Iranian regime falls, a lot of these everything here shifts, because then the Houthis' main financial backer, just like Hezbollah, just like Hamas, their main financial backer goes away. But that's the situation on the ground. I hope this was helpful. Hope it made some sense. Please drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of all this. And and we'll see you on the next one. All right. God bless you all.